Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into some financial advice that you probably have not heard before. We're breaking down the 7 absolute worst purchases you can make in your 20s. And get this, our source isn't your typical boring financial guru. Right, so this advice isn't about shaming you for buying a $5 coffee. No, it actually comes from a 22-year-old who believes in spending money, like a lot of it. His whole point is that most frugal advice comes from people who would spend a ton if they could, which makes his take on this pretty unique. And when we say a lot of money, we really mean it. His personal annual spending budget is $2.5 million. So when a guy who can literally buy almost anything tells you what not to buy, well, that advice carries a totally different kind of weight. Okay, so let's get right into this list. We're going to start with 2 super common status symbols that, according to our source, are just major financial traps dressed up to look like a good time. First thing on the chopping block, splurging on those fancy premium flights for your own personal travel. Now, we're not talking about business trips where you have to show up sharp. This is about your vacations, and the logic against it is all about one thing: opportunity cost. Now, what's so powerful about this is how it totally reframes the whole decision. The question isn't just, hey, is 14 hours of comfort worth an extra $4,800? It's, is 14 hours of comfort worth more than 2 entire months of having incredible experiences in a place like Bali? You know, when you put it like that, the choice becomes way, way clearer. And here is the big flashing warning sign. Once you get that taste of luxury, it can be really dangerous. It completely resets what you think is normal, and that one-time splurge suddenly becomes a lifelong, super expensive habit that is incredibly hard to kick. It's classic lifestyle inflation. Okay, next up, bottle service. The argument here is that this purchase is almost always based on a completely flawed idea. You think you're just buying a crazy overpriced bottle, but what you're really buying is this false hope for a specific outcome. So it all comes down to your intention. If you go in thinking this purchase is going to get me a specific result, like you're going to meet someone special, that is a terrible, terrible investment. But if you walk in thinking, I am paying for a fun, kind of stupid experience with my friends, and I fully expect this money to just disappear, then okay, it might be acceptable, but only if you can truly, genuinely afford it. All right, let's keep it moving. This next category is all about the purchases that quietly suck away your 2 most valuable resources, your time and your money, and they often keep doing it long after you've already paid. You might be surprised by this one: an expensive, high-end TV. It's on the list, but not just because the tech is outdated in a couple of years. Nope. The real problem is its hidden cost, which is so much bigger than the price on the sticker. And this is a perfect example of something called second-order consequences. So what does that mean? Well, the first cost is the money you pay, but the second cost, the hidden one, is the obligation you now feel to use the TV. It makes it way too easy to just binge watch another series instead of, reading a book or starting that side hustle or just getting out and living. It literally drains your time away. Next up is paying for content on platforms like OnlyFans. Now, the source is really, really clear on this one. He argues that this is a purchase you should just avoid completely, no matter how much money you make, all because of the mindset it reinforces. And he points out this fascinating paradox, right? Think about it. The same person who's afraid to spend $20 on a platform like Skillshare to learn a new skill, they might see that as a scam. That same person often has no problem spending that exact same money on an OnlyFans subscription, which gives 0 return and, in his view, just reinforces a mindset of scarcity. Okay, this next section really gets to the heart of a huge wealth-building secret. It's all about knowing the critical difference between things that cost you money and things that just hold your money for you. Buying jewelry for yourself is apparently one of the absolute fastest ways to just lose money. See, unlike some other luxury goods that might hold their value, most jewelry drops in value the second you walk out of that store. And we're not talking about a small drop. That depreciation is steep. You're often looking at an instant loss of 40 to 80% of what you just paid. That makes it a terrible place to put your money. It's basically just a pure expense. I love this slide because it makes such a great distinction. With jewelry, you are literally losing money. But with an asset, like a rare collectible watch, you are parking money. You get to enjoy the item and its value stays the same or even goes up. See the difference? One is an expense, the other is just a holding pattern for your cash. All right, next up, those so-called signal groups that promise to tell you exactly what trades to make in crypto or what bets to place. These services, the ones that promise easy money, are presented as a super dangerous trap for two really important reasons. So first, the financial risk is just massive. People get so focused on what they could gain, they completely ignore the very real chance of losing everything. But the second problem? It's more subtle, and maybe even worse. It trains you to just be a follower. Instead of building your own skills and your own judgment, you just become dependent on copying other people. And that is not a path to long-term wealth. This brings us to the final item on the list, and it really ties this whole philosophy together. It all circles back to one critical idea. You have to understand your own intentions before you pull out your wallet. And here we are. This last one revisits the exact same logic we saw with bottle service, but in environments with even higher stakes. Going to casinos or strip clubs isn't automatically bad, but it becomes a terrible financial decision when you go in with the wrong mindset. It's a trap if you're spending money you actually need, or if you go in expecting to win, whether that's winning money or winning affection. The only way it's not a trap is if the money you're using is what he calls funny money, cash you could literally light on fire and not even blink. For most people in their 20s, that's almost never the case. So let's just do a quick recap. There it is, the full list, the 7 worst purchases to make in your 20s. And they're all about understanding opportunity cost, spotting hidden consequences, and being honest about why you're really spending your money. And really, if you take one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. The price tag on something is less important than how much its value drops. A $250,000 watch that holds its value is a smarter financial move than a $10,000 necklace that loses half its value the moment you buy it. So, avoiding all these traps, that's a defensive strategy, right? It stops you from losing the game. But that leaves us with the most important question of all for anyone trying to build a real future. What's the best offensive strategy to go out there and actually win it?